Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to CCCS203 Programming 2. Today we will learn about constructor chaining, something you've already had a preview of in the last lecture, but I'm going to show you an example that will clarify any questions I hope that you still had. So I'll start with a very simple example of that will consist of three classes. But the classes have very simple relationships between them. So we'll begin with an example comprising of three classes. Uh, at the top, we have a class called faculty, which is a subclass of another class called employee, which is a subclass of another class called person. So person is the superclass derived or inheriting from it. A subclass of it is employee, and inheriting from employee and a subclass of employee is the class faculty. So basically this is the hierarchy between these classes. So person, the superclass at the top, employee, the subclass, and faculty, a subclass of employee. But the specific topic that we're interested in is constructor chaining. So basically what happens, how are the different, so if I create an object of class faculty, in which order are the constructors of these three classes called? Because remember, a faculty is also an employee, and an employee is also a person. So does that mean that if I'm creating a faculty object, does faculty's constructor execute first? Does employees constructor execute first? Or does person's constructor execute first? So this example will address and answer this question. So this is our main program over here, and I am blank right now. So let me begin by first adding the superclass person. And it's going to be, all of these classes are actually going to be very simple, extremely simple. They're only going to contain as much code really as we need and no more. The second class, the subclass of person was employee, so I'm going to add that. And the third class is faculty. So we have three blank classes. Let me also establish the relationship between these. So faculty extends employee, so is a subclass of the employee class, and the employee class in turn extends the person class, and person class is the superclass of all, so nothing we need to do about that. Okay, and I kind of already told you what the only thing that we'll be doing in the main method is we'll be creating one object of the faculty class. That's it. We're done with the main method. Hold on a second. So this is public static void main string array args. There you go. Sorry. There you go. And we're done with the main method. That's all. We have a main method that only does this. It creates one object called f of class faculty. All right. Let's go into faculty, and obviously, so I'm trying to learn about the order in which constructors execute. So faculty's constructor, we just want to know when it executes. So I'm just going to print out a message to the screen here, faculty's no arg constructor invoked. And that'll tell us that we got to this line of code. We're executing whatever's inside the faculty constructor at that time. Okay. Faculty was a subclass of employee. So let's go to the employee class and kind of do the same thing over here. Let's add a public method constructor for employee, no arg constructor. And you know what? I'm going to add not just one but two constructors to this class. One will be a no arg constructor like this one. The other one will take an argument, a string as an argument. And so system dot line, and all this does is it prints out whatever string it received as argument, and the no arg constructor calls the string argument constructor. I'm going to give it a string over here as argument. This one's going to say invoke employees overloaded, and I'm going to explain what that word means. Constructor, and just to make sure that we're also doing something else in here, so some print, there we go. Also going to print out something else that shows that we're done with this line and we're moving on to other lines of code. Employees, no arg constructor invoked. There you go. Okay, so if you call the no arg constructor, it will, inside of it, it'll first make a call to the string argument constructor of employee, which will print out this string that I'm passing to it. The string over here, invoke employees overloaded constructor. And then when it's done calling this constructor, the next line is just another line printed out to screen saying employees no arg constructor invoked. Now employee is a subclass of person, and we'll make person's no arg constructor just as simple as the others. System out line, and this is going to call, let's say, person's no arg constructor invoked. Okay, so the question is, what will happen now when I compile this? Hopefully I didn't make an error or anything. Okay, I have to find the main class. Okay, let's try this again. There you go. So, let me show the order in which things are working. So, first message I'm getting is persons, no arg constructor invoked. Person is the superclass at the top. So, although I'm creating an object of type faculty, the first line of output that I'm seeing over here is actually this line, this printed line, printed out line from persons constructor. And the second line we see is invoke employees overloaded constructor. So that's basically the line being printed out over here by this constructor. The third line printed to the screen is employees no arg constructor invoked. That is this line. And then finally, faculties no arg constructor invoked, meaning this line over here. This may seem a little confusing and random, the order in which these are being called, so let me just add some numbers over here. So this is the fourth line to be printed out. Persons is the first one to be printed out, and over here is the second line that we see. This is the third line that we see, and let me run it one more time and I can see. So persons constructor runs, then employees overloaded constructor, then employees no arg constructor runs, and then finally in the end faculties constructor is executed. Let me show you what's going on, and let me show you in a step-by-step manner. So this is where the program begins. Forget for a moment the slight difference. We put just to save space, we put the main method inside the faculty class, but don't let that bother you. We put the main method inside the second is this week 10.1 class. It makes no difference. So execution of the program begins over here from the main method, and in the main method we go into, we create a new faculty object, which is a call to the constructor of the faculty class. But faculty, remember, is a subclass of employee. So before any line of code inside faculty's constructor executes, we jump to employees no arg constructor. Why the no arg constructor? Because we're not on the first line of the faculty constructor, we're not specifying explicitly which constructor of the employee superclass to run. So if we don't specify anything, if we don't write anything, the call will automatically go to the employees, the superclasses, no arg constructor. And remember, employee is in turn a subclass of person. So before we get into even the first line of code inside employees no arg constructor, we again jump first to the superclass persons constructor. And over there we have only one constructor, or a no arg constructor that can run, that will execute this line, which finally prints out persons no arg constructor is invoked. When we're done, we jump back to employees constructor, and the first line of that is a call to employees overloaded string argument constructor, which prints out that second string that we see on the screen. And when we're done over here, we return to the no-arg constructor of employee, which prints out this third line. Employee's no-arg constructor is invoked. And when we're done with employees no-arg constructor, no more lines left, we finally have to jump back to faculty's constructor, which is the constructor that was first invoked in the first place. Here's something for you to try out. So basically, I hope this explains why the different lines of text that we're seeing appear in the order that they do. Here's something for you to try out, to work on your own. Find the error in this program. Let me actually go back to the code that we have, and let me show you something else we can do. Let me make some modifications to the code, which will actually make no difference. Okay, so right now you can see that the superclasses constructor is always called implicitly without our saying so. Okay, so let's say we have faculties constructor over here. So instead of letting the JVM call the constructor of the superclass implicitly, I can call it myself explicitly, like this. I can say, you know what? Call my superclasses, call faculties classes superclasses constructor. If I run this, it will make no difference. Everything will still execute. Everything will happen the same way. If I go into employee superclass, over here, just like that, I can add a call to, super call to employee superclass. Even have it over here. Actually, this is interesting. Calling one construct, I'm actually in creating an employee object, I'm calling the constructor. I will now be calling the constructor of person twice. Once when I enter over here explicitly, then when I again over here in the string arg constructor. Let's see what that does. Aha. Call to this must first be state benefit. So we get problem over here. We're calling superclasses constructor when it's already been called over here. Okay. Let me remove this. Try this again. Still having trouble. Because this will again so you will also see that our use of this keyword over here. Mentally, you can replace this by employee, so which makes line 14 over here a call to employee with the string argument, which is just the other constructor of the employee class. There you go, still works. And person constructor, nothing much to do here. Okay. So whether you keep this or not, the superclasses constructor, whether you call it explicitly or implicitly, it will get called. So let me try out one other thing. So here in faculties constructor, instead of just calling the no-arg constructor explicitly, let me call the other string argument constructor implicitly. Just because it's almost Halloween. Ooh, okay. Let's see what the output is going to look like for this. And then, there you go. So, what's happening now is, first thing that happens is, when I create a faculty object in the main method, I call faculties constructor. I explicitly call employees no-arg constructor, this one. And remember, you only have to call one constructor. You don't need to call more than one. Call one constructor and you're all set. You call employees string argument constructor, which before doing anything calls persons no-arg constructor implicitly. This line gets executed. Persons no-arg constructor invoked, followed by whatever I have in here, and the string that I'm passing it over here is boo. Little disruption. See? So this line executes line 19, and from here, remember this being called from faculties constructor, I jump back and I finally execute line 15 of the faculty class, which is just this print out faculties no-arg constructor invoked. Okay. So this also demonstrates how you can call, how you can choose which constructor to run by calling a superclass's constructor explicitly, calling it yourself by putting code in it. Okay, I think that's all about constructor chaining. Try it out, play around with it a little bit like I did, and yeah, I'll see you next class.